Comic Book Savant, episode 386. Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This episode, we're going to be doing the final installment of my countdown of my 50 greatest or favorite comic book movies of all time. So I've been doing these for the past few months. I've been doing one episode a month. I didn't want to overload you guys with too much of it, so I just broke it down that way. You guys have responded pretty nicely to it, and we've had a lot of fun counting down my favorite comic book film or superhero films of all time. But we got the last 10 in this episode. But before we get into this episode, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. If you listen to me, you like what I do, you want to find more relevant material that's based upon comic books, you can go over to the Comics Podcast Network at comicspodcast.com. There are literally hundreds of different podcasts listed there that are comic book related. They're separated out from genre based on publishers, teams, individual characters. You have single person podcasts like myself. You also have like ensemble roundtable discussion shows as well. It's just a ton of different formats of content that you can listen to through the Comics Podcast Network. So if you like what I do and you're looking for more of the same, definitely take a moment and stop by comicspodcast.com and check it out. And last but not least, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor for this episode, which is InStockTrades.com, one of the best places you can go online to get your trade paperbacks, manga collections, oversized special edition comics, as well as you can get omnibuses, which are huge now, Marvel Masterworks, Absolute Editions, anything that's collected in comic books, you can pretty much find over at InStockTrades.com. They have discounts ranging from 35%, 42%, and up to 50% off. They also have highlighted on their homepage the deals of the week, which they'll have those discounted at 50% off. If you're a U.S.-based customer, you can get free shipping within the U.S. That's only for U.S.-based customers. Not saying if you live outside of the U.S. you cannot have a ton of great savings. You still save a ton, and they have some of the most competitive and cheapest international shipping rates around, so you still can save a ton of money. So don't let that deter you from checking out the site. So definitely, if you have a moment, check out InStockTrades.com, and if you decide to order from them, let them know that you did hear about them here on the Comic Book Savant podcast. I would greatly appreciate it. Now, with all that being said, let's jump into the countdown. Number 10 for me is Iron Man, which kicked off the whole MCU, came out back in 2008. I always equate with the Iron Man movie, the original Iron Man movie. I remember I went with a group of friends. We all were like comic geeks and stuff, and we went to see Iron Man. And I always equate that experience to something that no other movie I can think of could equate to. It was just like I felt like a kid, though I was 30 some years old when that came out. I'm 42, about to be 43. Yeah, so I was 32, going to be 33. And I remember it was just the childlike sense of wonder and seeing it, because it had been so many iterations of Iron Man rumored for probably like 10 years before. At one point, we thought we were going to have Tom Cruise playing Iron Man. That was a rumor at one point. We also had rumors that it was going to be a Hulk movie with Johnny Depp playing Bruce Banner. So it was like a lot of things had trickled around for years about Iron Man and different Marvel properties coming to the big screen and what actors were going to play them. But everything just in this movie was pitch perfect. And seeing Iron Man in the suit flying around, I always Iron Man was always a character that I gravitated to over the years, but really this him being pulled in and being the tentpole of the MCU solidified him as a comics character because, growing up in the 80s and even into the 90s, Iron Man could not keep a monthly book. His book was always being canceled, restarted, retitled, reshuffled in some way. They threw every creative team and their mom on it to try to get the book going, and it would do well for a stretch. And then it would it would go away and they would start back up. It's had so many volumes over the years. And, they launched in conjunction with the movie, the Matt Fraction, Salvador LaRocca Invincible Iron Man series, which was phenomenal. That really just elevated the character. And the character has went from, I guess, maybe before this point, I would probably say Iron Man in the comic world was maybe a C, even D-list hero, and because of this movie, and you look at Iron Man's importance into the Marvel Comics universe, on the comic side, he's an A-list character now, but it was because of how they launched not just the movie, but the comic as well, and the talent they put behind it, and really elevated the character to monumental status, from that point. Which was phenomenal. But I always have a fond place in my heart, like hanging out with my boys, going to see the movie, and how we were just like, they really pulled that off and pulled it off so well on film, what we had always seen in the comics. And it was just like a sense of awe, watching the movie and coming out of the movie. I just was like shocked that they pulled it off so well. Next for me, for number 9, would be The Dark Knight, also released in 2008, the Christopher Nolan sequel to Batman Begins. And with Heath Ledger, tragically we lost him shortly after this movie came out, around that same time. Phenomenal performance as Joker. Like this movie, I don't love it as much as other people. I've grown to appreciate it. But I don't have the love affair with this movie as other people. And people say it's the best comic book movie of all time and all that stuff. Clearly it's not, because it's number 9 on my list, but I do like the movie. It took me some time to appreciate the movie. I like the performances in the movie, but the movie as a whole, I didn't love it like from the first time I saw it like other people. It had to grow on me over the years and multiple viewings. Number 8 for me is Man of Steel 2013. Was when that came out. Zack Snyder. I feel like out of the Zack Snyder movies that he did, as far as the DCEU, this is the best one. It just clicked for me. I liked his take on Superman. I've never been a huge Superman fan, and I always say this anytime I talk about anything Superman on the podcast, is that I'm not a huge Superman fan. I liked this take on Superman. He made him more relatable and more human, and I liked that. And it gave you room to build if they had done things properly and let him do Man of Steel 2 and a Man of Steel 3 even. Or even Man of Steel 2, then, and I always say, and I said this before in the episodes where I was talking about fixing the DCEU, I always felt like it should have been Man of Steel 2, then a Batman v Superman potentially, and to grow it out, because it was a progression. They try to retcon it all and fit it all in and have that third. His transition into the Superman we all know, like the Christopher Reeves type Superman and Justice League, but it was all discombobulated and just a mess, and they were trying to retcon and try to do what I feel like Zack Snyder was planning on doing with the trilogy of Man of Steel movies. If he had ever had the chance to do them, it was going to be an evolution with him ending being the Superman we knew. But again, he was just becoming. This is an origin story, a retelling of an origin story. And I don't think this movie gets enough credit. They always talk about him killing Zod at the end, but how the movie was set up. He didn't have a choice. If he was going to save Earth and save the people, he was going to have to take Zod out, because Zod wasn't going to stop. But I've talked about this numerous times when I've reviewed the movie. I've talked about this, argued this point so many times, so I'm not going to get into it now. But that's my number 8 movie. Batman 1989 is my number 7 movie. Loved Michael Keaton as Batman. I could not stand Batman Returns, but I love this movie. I recently bought this movie digitally, maybe like a year ago, and I rewatched it, and it still holds up pretty good. It's definitely a movie of the time. It's definitely a late 80s, early 90s movie to the Prince soundtrack and everything, man. It was so much of a movie of its time, but it's so nostalgic for me, and I feel like it holds up really good. And I feel like in this movie, I liked Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne as well as Batman. I didn't like the direction they went in Batman Returns. I wish they would have stayed closer to this, and like to see what another movie would have looked like with him as Batman with a better script than what they had in Batman Returns. So that would have been a true. I felt like, because this Batman Returns felt so disjointed from Batman 89 that I would have liked to see more something in line that would have been a direct sequel to it, with Michael Keaton and back in a cowl as Batman, but we didn't get it, so what can you say? Number 6 for me is X2, X-Men United. I feel like hands down this is the best X-Men of the Fox X-Men movies. This is the best one, hands down. I rewatched this one not too long ago. It still holds up well. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, just everyone, James Marsden as Cyclops. It just was the best of the X-Men movies. And I do like other ones, and I've talked about them on the countdown, but going back watching this one, because I was trying to really rank how they stack up for me, and I always go back to this one that is just fun, and it's funny because I'm not a huge fan of the original X-Men movie by Bryan Singer, but I love this movie. So it is, it is what it is with that. Number 5 for me is Batman Begins. This is my quintessential go-to Batman movie far as on live action Batman movie. This was released back in 2005. I love it. I love Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul. Just so many notes just were pitch perfect. Michael Caine as Alfred. I love the trilogy of movies in Nolan's series. It does something for me. So this stacks up as one of my favorite comic book movie trilogies, the Nolan Batman series of films. So that's number 5 for me. Number 4, which is the best Batman movie ever, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, released back in 1993. It had a theatrical release, a small one, but it had a theatrical release. Some people miss out on this movie and don't know the greatness, which is the Mask of the Phantasm. It was done from the same people that did Batman animated series. This was early in the animated series run that they decided to do a movie. They used the Phantasm character. I can't remember if directly in the animated series did they ever tie her in, because this was a film into it, but I know she popped up years later in Batman Beyond. The Phantasm character showed up, but I can't remember in the regular series did Phantasm ever show up, but she did show up in Batman Beyond, so it was all in that same continuity. And I don't think anyway she ever showed up in comics, but I could be wrong, and I probably need to check that out. But just a phenomenal movie, and still holds up to this day. I need to get this digitally to add it to my collection because I don't have it yet. Number 3 is The Incredibles. Came out in 2004. This is my number 3. We just had the sequel that came out a couple of weeks ago. This movie is the best Fantastic Four movie you'll ever see that's not a Fantastic Four movie. There's nothing else you can say about The Incredibles. It's just a phenomenal movie. Pixar, yes, it's not based off of a comic book, but it is one of the best superhero movies you will ever see. So I had to include it on the list. And I'm going to finish up my countdown with my number 2, which is Captain America Civil War, released in 2006. This movie just had so much going for it. It was basically Avengers 2.5 5, but it was Captain America Civil War. We had an introduction of Black Panther. Then you follow that up with Black Panther launching in his own movie. You had the Avengers fighting one another. You had the Civil War storyline. You had Baron Zemo. It was just so many good things. You had the introduction of Tom Holland as Spider-Man in this movie. This movie is so layered and nuanced, and it took so many characters, and the Russo brothers just knocked it out the park with handling all these characters and giving them their proper time. And, you know, this was just a ramp up for what we end up getting later in Infinity War. Just a great movie. I've watched this movie so many times in the short time since it's been released and like on home video. It's like I've watched it a lot, and I just always enjoyed it. And every now and again, I just pop it in to watch because it's just fun. And number one for me, which is no surprise if you have listened to this podcast any amount of time, is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I've watched this movie an absurd amount of times. Came out in 2014. Just the Winter Soldier storyline, that spy espionage thriller, them using a different genre, and just how the Russo brothers applied it. And no one knew who the Russo brothers were outside of they had done comedy stuff, like what Community was what they were working on, and then doing something like a Marvel movie, and be it Captain America, and they just knocked it out the park, and they just keep killing it. They've done, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, whichever Avengers 4 is going to be. They are just great directors, and they have just knocked it out the park. And I've just thoroughly enjoyed their movies. Probably, I'd be hard pressed for me to decide which one is a better trilogy, the Nolan Batman or the Captain America movies or another trilogy. But I love these movies, and they're so rewatchable. There's so many scenes that I just love, in this movie, action sequences of Captain America just in action, just that just make you want to watch it and have fun with the movie. And his building of his relationship with Sam, and Black Widow in this movie just always makes it just a fun watch. When I just want to kick back and relax, sometimes I just pop this movie on and just vibe out to it. But that is the countdown. So if you haven't caught the other episodes, there is one for each month. Just do a search. If you go to the website, comicbooksavant.com, it's a search bar up. Just do a search for 50 greatest comic book movies, and you'll see the other 4 episodes. This is episode 5, so you should find all 5, but you'll find the other 4 if you've missed them, or if you've missed one of them, you'll be able to pull it up real easy and go back to listen to the episodes. Don't forget to actually also, that's all I got for you guys for this episode. Don't forget to check out the website, comicbooksavant.com. Don't forget to check me out on social media, on Twitter, Instagram. It's also the Facebook page, facebook.com/comicbooksavant. Also have the YouTube channel going. Now I'm putting out, just like I'm pretty much, for the most part, putting out 2 episodes a week on audio podcast now. I'm putting out 2 videos a week on the YouTube channel. I've had that much content that I've been doing, that I've been rolling out. So if you haven't already, check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/comicbooksavant. I try to do different content from what I'm doing here, still all comic book related. But I do like the TV reviews, like I've done. I have a couple of more I need to do. I think I have to do Supergirl, but I've done all the other CW season reviews for their shows, and like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., all the shows that I normally would cover on a podcast episode. I do shorter ones singling out the individual shows on there. I do trade reviews on there as well, movie reviews, non-spoiler movie reviews, all those kind of things. I also do on the Comic Book Collector's Guide series there as well. So if you are new to getting into the hobby of collecting comics, I have a series there that is like a how-to kind of guide. So definitely that might be something you want to check out over on the YouTube channel. If you go, when you pull up the homepage, you'll see the different playlists, and that'll be listed there. So you see everything broken out nice and neat for you, easily for you guys to find. Don't also be afraid to join the Facebook community. I have a Facebook group, discussion group All the links to everything is on the website at comicbooksavant.com. Also, if you want to consider becoming a Patreon and helping support the show, I have links to all that on the website as well. So definitely check that out. Also, too, if you want to help support the show in a kind of a more passive way, I also have affiliate links up. So I have recommendations for comic book related books, movies, video games. It's called, the link on the homepage is called Bookshelf. If you click on that, if you're so inclined to and you want to buy something I've recommended, when you click on the link, it'll take you to Amazon. I have an affiliate link there, so I get a little kickback that helps support the channel. Or the show. I'm just going to say a show now because it's not just a podcast. It's not just a YouTube channel. It's all encompassing. So the show, if you want to help support the show, you can do that if you're so inclined. If not, just if you know someone that likes what I'm covering, or you're in a particular community, please share it out. Help grow the community. Help grow the listener base by sharing the material. That goes a long way. Following me on social media or subscribing to the YouTube channel and giving me feedback. All that, if you can't financially help support the show, all those things help because it helps grow the community. So anything that you can do is greatly appreciated. That's all I have for you for this week, for this episode of Comic Book Savant, and I'll see you guys next time with another episode. You have a good week, and I will see you back on Thursday. Take care.